So we do make apps that like you can like get off the App Store and stuff, but they're all built with JavaScript like deep down. So we're a very like web-based company. I gave a talk here maybe, it was about a year ago, called Feedback and the REPL. Was anyone here for that? Cool. Hopefully this won't be boring for you guys. So that was more of a sort of conceptual historical talk. This is going to be much more hands-on. So hopefully it'll be good for you guys as well. So I'm going to be talking about a couple of techniques that we've developed over the last 5 years or so for working with JavaScript. They've been working really well for us, and I thought it'd be good to share it. I mean, it's really just like, it's like how we do everything now. So, you know, the first technique is REPL-driven development. Has anyone ever heard of that? Yeah. It's quite popular in other languages, not so much in JavaScript. Has anyone ever heard of Clojure, language Clojure? Yes, same person that put their hand up for the REPL-driven development. Because in Clojure, they use the REPL all the time. That's like the natural way to work. They're also the highest paid programmers that there are. Maybe there's a connection, I don't know. I suspect there probably is. Yeah, but REPL-driven development is basically where you make the REPL one of your central tools, not like something that you go off and use occasionally. Oh, Shaki, thanks for naming my talk. I realized I hadn't actually sent you the name. This talk is called The REPL is Not a Toy, but your name is good too. Thanks very much. Thanks very much for that. The second technique is this idea that I'm calling whole modules, which is where all the relevant stuff is in one file. You don't split it over separate files. And I think what we'll find is if we start with the REPL, we'll end up naturally at whole modules. Right, so does anyone know what a REPL is? Yes? Yes, I'm sure a lot of you have used the REPL. Does anyone know what it stands for? It's an acronym. Yeah? Read, execute, print, loop. Very close. Anyone can help out with the E? Sorry? Eval, yeah. So read, eval, print, loop. Read, eval, print, loop. All right, so everyone understands what a REPL is now? No, it doesn't help at all. It's like the worst acronym. It's a historical artifact. I think the better way to understand the REPL is to see it actually being used. Does anyone know how I could bring up a REPL on my laptop, a JavaScript REPL? Yep. Type in node at the terminal. Any other ways? Yes, you too. The dev tools in any of the modern browsers, Safari, Firefox, Chrome, whatever, they all have a REPL. I'll show you how to get to it. We go to inspect, console, and this is where all your errors spew out. But right down the bottom, there is a prompt. See the flashing cursor? And you can type in JavaScript there. Ooh. And you can run it. And you can see what the result is. You can run functions. You can even declare variables. And then you can use them later. You also have access to the page. It's all of the code we're running here is running in the context of the web page right next to it. So we can hack the page. Try this one. There we go. So a lot of very useful if you want to sort of try something out really quickly, like figure out what a function does, or like investigate some JavaScript weirdness, because JavaScript is a very weird language that has some crazy edge cases. But there are some pretty serious limitations to a REPL like this. The first issue is that it has this sort of prompt-based interface. So does anyone know why the REPL has this prompt-based interface where you type text in and then it prints it out on the line. Yeah?
From the teletype days?
Yes, so the REPL predates screens on computers. So people would dial into their mainframe and they'd have basically like an electric typewriter and they'd type in their code or whatever. And then the result would print out on a real printer. That's the print in read-eval print loop. It would print it out on your printer. So since then, things have changed. Like we use a graphical text editor or an IDE to write our code. We're not, writing everything by hand. The other limitation is that a REPL like this can't evaluate like the import statement. So if you wanted to import a module, well, let's see what happens. Syntax error. It literally will just refuse to evaluate this. That's a real bone, right? Because, I mean, we're programmers. Code reuse is our bread and butter. Imagine never being able to import anything. Okay, no React, no anything, no jQuery. Can you import jQuery?
No one wants jQuery.
No, okay, no one wants jQuery. Some people still love jQuery. Talk to people. Yeah, but the fact that we can't import code is like crippling. That's what really cripples this REPL. So we're programmers or engineers or developers or whatever. When our tools are not fit for purpose, what do? Yes, we make more tools. We make better tools. So that's what I did. I tried to address those two limitations with a new tool, and it's called Replete. And it's basically just a REPL that integrates with your text editor. So you don't have to go and copy and paste your code into this prompt every time you want to run something. And it supports the import statement. Right, so does anyone use VS Code here? Yes, a few people. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code for the demo. To install Replete, it's an extension for VS Code. You can also get it on some other text editors, but no one seems to use any other text editors. We've got extensions, Replete. There it is. It's your little R2D2 mate. And install it. So it's installed. To install it, you do need to have Dino and Node installed. Has anyone heard Dino? Yeah? Yeah, Dino is, who's heard of Node? Okay. So like Dino is kind of the spiritual successor to Node. It's actually by the same person made both. If you get the letters of Node and you rearrange them, you get Dino. It's all very 2.0. But if you don't have them installed, this isn't going to work. Right. Okay, so now we have Replete installed. We get some extra commands. We have a start command, which starts up Replete. That starts your REPL. Stop to stop the REPL. Clear output to throw away whatever outputs come up on the screen. And then 3 evaluate commands. And you can use those to evaluate your selected code, so code you've selected with your mouse, in Dino, Node, or a browser. So let's give it a whirl. First thing I'll do is I'll start Replete. I'm going to be using the keyboard shortcuts because it's just so much more convenient. All right, so I've started Replete. Notice that we're now seeing Replete's output down here. I'll explain what that is in a minute. Showcase. So this is sort of similar to what I was typing into that prompt REPL before. But now, select some code, and let's evaluate this in Node. So I'll press the shortcut for that. And the value appears down there. So there's the result. If you don't select anything, it's just going to evaluate the line that your cursor is on. So I'll evaluate this line in Dino with a different keyboard shortcut. Do it lots of times. You need a few random numbers. There you go. we can evaluate code that has side effects. So why does console.log have a side effect? Anyone explain that to me? Well, it prints something out, right? I'll evaluate that in Dino. But notice we get 2 lines here. We got the REPL, which was what we printed, but then we also got undefined. Do anyone know why we got undefined? Yeah, because that's what console.log returns. When you evaluate code, you always get a value. If I go down here and I evaluate literally nothing, I still get undefined. So there's very much a value thing going on, unless what you're trying to evaluate fails. In that case, you don't get a value, you just get an exception. Now, I did promise that we could import modules. So this is my module. It's just a function that doubles a number. And if I evaluate this line, well, we get undefined. But now we have a double function that we can play with. I've highlighted the double identifier. If I evaluate that, we'll see what it is.
Now get the passcode, thing on the bottom.
Oh, yep. Heal.
We go.
Oh, that's great.
Okay, so I was just about to use double function to prove it was really imported. There we go. We got a double 1.5 down there. Okay, so that's sort of, now we're in business. If we're able to import code, we can literally like do anything. So this is very exciting. I'll just mention that you really have 3 REPLs going here. You've got your Dino REPL running away, your Node REPL running, and browser REPL, which we'll get to in a second. So we can ask Dino what its version is. I'll evaluate this line in Dino. We could ask Node what its version is, but I can't ask node what its Dino version is. That won't work. So we get an exception because there's no Dino. Now the browser, there's one extra step you have to do to start evaluating code in the browser, and that is to open a REPL. So I'll restart the REPL here. I'm interested. I don't know what that is. Okay, so the REPL is kind of like a development server in a way. We'll open it up here. And if everything went well, you get a blank page. And this is basically like a blank canvas. Just like when you open up a REPL, there's like nothing there. I'll prove it to you. There's an empty body. The head is just a title and some scripts which make the whole REPL part work. Now we've got our REPL was found, which means that we're connected up to the tab. This line in the browser, we should get some useful information back from the browser. Okay, so let's make an app. I was thinking maybe something that is complicated enough that I couldn't write it from scratch, but not so complicated that we're going to be here for like 200 hours. So how about a QR code generator? How about that? First thing I'm going to do is import a QR code library because I'm not going to implement that right now. And I'm going to get it from esm.sh. Has anyone used esm.sh? Yeah, it's an ES module mirror of NPM. So whatever's on NPM, esm.sh has like bundled it up with ES build so that it's like a proper ES module and serves it as like basically a CDN. So anything that's on NPM pretty much, except for some like really weird packages that use CommonJS in really naughty ways, can be imported. So I'll evaluate this in the browser. Must have been cached. And if I evaluate QR code, we'll see what we got. Okay, so we got an object with 4 functions. All right, well, I think the one we want is to string. So we want to create a QR code of some text. They don't have to be URLs. And let's evaluate that. Okay, so we got a promise. We know what to do with a promise. We'll send the result into console.log, right? So when that promise completes, it's going to call console.log with the string. Okay, what have we got here? We've got a whole bunch of SVG. So it looks like it's generated an SVG of a QR code, which is neat. But it would be nice to be able to see that SVG, wouldn't it? We'll evaluate that again. And we have an SVG. Right. Anyone want to check that works? It should say secret message. Hey? Oh, yeah. Well, that would be a bug in the library, wouldn't it? Right, so I want to point out that we've just basically conquered like the main technical challenges of our app without any boilerplate whatsoever. So we didn't have to install any libraries. We didn't have to do like an npm install. We didn't have to compile anything. We didn't have to even create an HTML file. We didn't even have to save the file. It isn't even saved yet, and it's still working. So, okay, so we've got like basically the proof of concept that it should be possible to make an app around this. We found a library that works. Now we want to add some interactivity. But I thought what would be fun is if you guys could all join in and connect to this REPL, because you can have more than one browser tab on a REPL. Now what I've done is I've got a proxy which is going to serve that page there via a public URL. So does everyone want to get their phones out and type in this really long URL? Oh, yeah, I can make a QR code of it. Let's do that. Maybe that might be a bit easier. If you get a blank page, it's worked. Okay, so we've got lots of people. We're finding people. We've got people's phones requesting files that don't exist, but that's okay. People are arriving, people are leaving. Why don't you all give me your names?
What is your credit card number?
Huh? Sharky?
That's better than mine. That's nice fitting as well.
Oh, that's awesome. We got so much participation. This is great. I thought maybe a few people would do it, but everyone's doing it. So now I'm going to hackle your phone. No, I'm not. You're just on a web page, but I'm able to control what that web page is doing in real time. My friend described it like, it's like building a train while it's moving. All right, so let's make the app interactive. So we need a UI for this. What would be a good UI for this if someone wanted to generate QR codes? Text box, we need a text box.
Expandable one.
Expandable one. Okay. Expandable text box. Maybe that'll be in 2.0. Right. So how do we create a text input in JavaScript? Yep. Right, so we're going to make a DOM element that's an input. And how do we add it to the page? Well, we don't work with HTML because we've got a DOM element, but we can append child. So we'll do that. Yeah, there's a new one that's called append, which I like more than append child because you can give it strings and you can give it multiple elements. So we'll do that. Did everyone get a input? Oh, someone missed it because I hadn't evaluated the line with the input. But, you know, sucks for you. It'll work in a second, don't worry. All right, so we've got our input. Do we need a button? No? How could we get around having a button? Yeah. We'll just use one of the inputs events. And just move this down into there. What's happened? Oh no! But is it still working for some people? Okay, cool. Right, it's the free proxy. That's not my fault. That's the proxy I'm using. No, it's my fault that I'm cheap. If you're all on the Atlassian Wi-Fi, we could try something else. But anyway, so we want to use the content of the input. And when we get the SVG, what are we going to do with it? If we put it into the body, it's going to throw away the input, which is probably not what we want. Maybe we'll make a div. Get a div there. Put that in there. Maybe we should give the div some styling. Oh, border. My favorite CSS color. All right, so maybe we will fill that div with the SVG. All right, so when you start working like this, eventually it gets too tricky to like evaluate line by line stuff. You want to just run the whole thing and get the latest, right? And we can do that by putting in a little reset up here. Document.document element. Does anyone know what that is? Yeah, it's the root element. It's like the HTML. in the HTML. So if we say that, we throw away our entire document. Did everyone's document go blank? So now we'll evaluate the whole file and we'll hopefully get some sort of app. Sorry, I realized that you guys haven't been able to see that. I mean, me neither, but I guess not everyone is on the thing. Okay, so now we'll make a QR code. As it gets longer, it gets more sophisticated. That's nice. Right, so we have an app. That's nice. Thanks, Sam, for that terminology. This is all main code. All this stuff going on here. This is all very, very side effecty. But what would be nice is if we could export this as a component that maybe someone could put in their own app. They could import this via like an import statement and then add a little QR code generator onto their like personal homepage or whatever. So how would we do that? Maybe we'll export a function and that function will do all this main work, right? Now, let's see. We're going to need a container for the component. We'll call it container. And rather than adding this stuff to document.body, which is very, intrusive, very intrusive for a function to do that, we'll do this. And then down here, we'll append our QR generator component to the body. All right, so we've still got our reset line there. So if I run that, we should get exactly what we had before, but we've got nothing. Can anyone see the bug? Yes. I made exactly the same mistake yesterday unintentionally. So we'll try that again. Okay, so now we've got something we could export. And I guess we could save the file now. It's sort of worthy of being saved. But there's just one problem. If you do import this into your app, what's going to happen? Yeah, it's going to delete your whole app and install itself as a demo of the QR code generator, which is probably not what you wanted. So it would be prudent to comment that out before giving it out to your friends. All right, so it would also be good to explain what the hell this is. It's a QR code generator UI component, right? So you know how I was talking about whole modules? This is my idea of a whole module. We have a specification up the top, we have the implementation in the middle, and then we have like the tests or some kind of demo, and they're all in the same file. So you don't have to be switching around files while you're working on it. You can just live your life inside this file for the duration that you're working on this module, on this component. It's a very powerful idea to have every module being able to demonstrate its own correctness. So what we've essentially got is we've got a module that can be run in main mode, where it actually has like side effects and like runs as a program, or we have it in like side effect free mode or like module mode, where it's exporting some useful stuff for something else to use. If you have something like this, if you make your whole app out of components like this, it gets very easy to find bugs because you don't have to run your whole application when you want to work on just one little component, right? The bugs have nowhere to hide. You find the component where the bug is and then debug the crap out of it right there without the whole rest of your app running and confusing things and, you know, introducing confusion. Now, I do want to mention some way that this could be improved. The fact that this demo here is commented means that if I do come along, I'm just going to restart Replete there. If I do come along and I want to like run the demo, I first have to uncomment the demo, or it won't do anything. If I evaluate this in the browser, nothing happens because the main code is commented out. So what we ended up doing was using this brilliant invention by Douglas Crockford. Anyone heard of Douglas Crockford before? Yes, 1995, nice. Yeah, Douglas Crockford, the godfather of JavaScript. And Jason, inventor of JSON. He invented another really great little minimal thing called a tagged comment. And the way you turn a normal comment into a tagged comment is you add a tag like that. Obviously still a comment. It's not going to run, obviously. But how about just before it runs, we apply a transformation that removes the / demo part and leaves this line like activated. And we can do that with Replete. We have the ability to transform source however we want before it runs, but it doesn't do it by default. I'm going to show you how it can be configured to do that. You might have noticed this little replete.json file here. If you have this in the root of your package, the Replete plugin will use it to configure Replete. And all it consists of is the command used to run Replete. So Replete itself is this sort of headless thing. It's like a headless REPL, I guess you would call it, with a JSON interface. And VS Code, the plugin that's running in VS Code, talks to it with JSON. And this is the command it runs to actually start Replete. To prove that, I will actually run this in a terminal and show you what it does. It's very small text. Oh, better. I'll just stop my other Replete because they're going to collide with their port numbers. Okay, so we're back. People are joining. Now you have no idea what I'm typing. Maybe I shouldn't have let everyone on for this part. Anyway. There, so you should have got a little hello. So that's like what's running under the hood. Anyway, we'll stop that. Right, so this is if you didn't have a replete.json, this is what it would do automatically. So this is like the stock. But what we can do is we can specify our own Replete file or our own Replete program. Like a modified, configured version of Replete. So now, when I restart Replete, it's going to use this custom Replete here as the Replete. And here what we do is we import a function, the Replete run function, and then we provide all those arguments we were providing as command line arguments in the object there. Something we can do that we can't do with command line arguments is pass in functions. Now I'm going to use this function to modify each evaluation message that arrives at Replete. And we're going to perform a source transformation, which removes the / demo from the source code and replaces it with nothing. So what would the effect be of this? Anyone guess? Sorry? Yeah, it'll activate the demo. So when I evaluate this module in Replete, it will run the demo. But if I shared this with a friend, it wouldn't run the demo. So that means we don't have to bother about commenting it or uncommenting it when we just want to run a demo. We just run it. Now, the reason I took all that time to show you that is that people do get quite excited about source transformation. Who likes source transformation? I'm betting a lot of people here like TypeScript. That's a form of source transformation. I have a friend who's configured Replete to evaluate JSX. You can literally like highlight a JSX element, evaluate it, and you see like the React element object. It's pretty cool. You can do anything you want. If you wanted to use this for CoffeeScript, 1995, you could do that. That would be totally fine. The last piece of the puzzle is static assets. What if you wanted to put an image in the component? I mean, it's not like your average web server. How are you going to get a URL for that image? I've been using import.meta.resolve for this. Does anyone use that? It's okay. It's pretty awesome. If I evaluate that, it's going to resolve that relative path relative to this module. So it's going to find the cat.gif in that directory up there, and it's going to give me a URL for that. Whoops, so a lot of you have the full URL. This is mine. So we could use that to populate an image. I'm just telling you this because this is an important piece of the puzzle. You don't get very far if you can't reference like CSS or images, or like great for web workers. You want to use a web worker without passing like the actual URL down. Where's our cat? Ah, broken image. Security feature, not bug. Replete does not serve any kind of file except JavaScript by default, because I didn't want people to accidentally sort of expose their code base on their computer, like to malicious applications on their computer. So we have to tell Replete that it's okay to serve GIFs. And we'll do that by passing in a MIME function as an option. So usually the MIME function is just this. That's the default. But we're also going to support GIFs. Right, so we restart that and run that. We should see Nyan cats. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so how are we going for time? All right. You can also use Replete on the server side. So we could make a, whoop, wrong text editor. We could make a server. We're in Dino. Turn new response. Hello from the pool. And if I evaluate that in Dino, starts a web server. Dino.served return like a server object that we could use to like shut down the server or whatever. Let's go to our website. I mean, this is a classic Node.js demo. Look, I just made a web server with like 5 lines of code. But I made a web server without saving a file. So does that come up trumps? And obviously that could be any kind of web server that could do anything. I was thinking about making this into like a QR code server that would generate QR code images. But I wasn't sure about evaluating this in Dino. So I figured it was pretty safe to evaluate it in the browser. It's not going to like escape. But if I evaluate that in Dino or Node, if there's a supply chain attack, if like that module's been compromised, it could just access all of my files. It could like talk to the network. It could run commands. It could do anything. So it's a lot less safe to evaluate stuff like that on the server. So I decided against it. But yeah, who are we trusting here? We're trusting esm.sh. We're trusting npm. We're trusting the authors of the QR code library. We're trusting that none of them have been hacked or lured into, providing their services to shadowy organizations. We're trusting Replete, but then you're just trusting me, and that's fine. Well, I trust me. That's the thing, mostly. And your mom. And my mom. Of course I trust my mom. That's family business. It's all about trust. Okay, so eval is evil. Don't forget about that. In Replete, it's really, this is the dangerous one. Evaluating something like this, code that you don't know anything about and maybe don't trust, evaluating it in Dino or Node, potentially dangerous. Use your judgment. It's an eval. All right. So I wanted to show you how we've been using Replete at Equimaps, like in the real world, because all of this is very small. We're using it for like pretty big apps. So I wanted to show you some of that. This is one of our apps. It's sort of a post-production tool for like the user-generated content, which is like sort of maps. This is our sort of dummy account. Let's see. Train test. Mum took a train. There you go. And we can go and edit that. So this is the track here. We could like move these things around or bend the track, that sort of stuff. Up here, we could like change the color of the track or the text, that sort of thing. Now I'm just going to dive into one of our components, which has a demo, which will be like a portion of this experience. Where's my browser? Okay, so this is my WEBL. This isn't going to come up on your screens because I'm not going to share this WEBL because it's secret. Okay, so a couple of things I'll point out here. When we write our demos, we randomize the input. So every time you run it, it's different. And you can use that to more effectively find bugs that are caused by like input data. Here we've still got the little color changer and stuff like that. Where are we here? Where are we? Oh, we're in Greenland. So it's very, very random. It's definitely not a cross-country course there in Greenland. It's all completely random. Now, suppose I wanted to have a look at this part of the user interface on its own. We could actually drill down. Whoop, into just that. And in this case, not only are we randomizing the data, but we're randomizing like network latency or simulating random network latency and error states. So eventually, if we run it enough times, it's going to fail. So it's great for like testing your components, like response to all the different possible configurations. We can drill down further. Suppose we wanted to look at this little color picker here. Whoop. There we've just got that part. So say there's a bug in this part, we're just working with this part and not any of the other parts. And the smallest thing I think we have is an individual swatch. So each time we run that, it's going to be a different color, different activation state. Yeah.
So there was a random or you have evaluation each?
Oh, what, sorry?
Changing on every reevaluation.
Yes, every reevaluation.
Is it random or you have?
Yeah, it's random. No, it's random. It's good. You could make a sequence, but it's all completely random. So we don't only use these whole modules and Replete for front-end stuff, even though that's what I've been concentrating on. For instance, we have, this is some backend module that performs a query on Elasticsearch. So it basically talks to a real Elasticsearch server. And its tests are embedded inside it. They're also exported so that an external test runner can run them. You don't need to go into the module and run its demo or whatever. But if I run that in Dino, it runs all its tests and it runs a little demo. So this is, we've got like hundreds of modules like this at this point. Right, so before you all fall asleep, I'm going to end on a high note. History lesson. So you know how we had read, eval, print, loop? That acronym actually comes from the very first REPL program. And it's in Lisp, so the brackets are going to be in weird places, but you'll figure out what it means. The read function gets called, that gets user input. That's passed to the eval function, which runs it. That gets printed out by the print function as a string, or print returns it as a string. And then loop sends us back to read. So there's your read, eval, print loop. It's like a tiny little program, very powerful, mostly because of the eval function. That's what makes it good. But let's port it to JavaScript. Do we have a read function in JavaScript? Console.log writes to the console, but do we have a read one which pulls in text from the user? An input. Do we have one that literally like returns the user input, like it blocks prompt? Exactly. So if I evaluate that, where are we? Hello from the browser. We see that it returns hello from the browser. Yeah. Do we have a function like eval in JavaScript? Eval. Now if I run that, say 1 plus that, we get a result, which is not really what I guess it is. Yeah, I guess that is the answer. What about print? Do we have an equivalent? Console.log, that would print it to the console. But could we stick within the sort of like prompt UI? Alert? Yes. Yes, alert. Is there another one that's like alert, but you get 2 buttons? Confirm. 995. So if I evaluate that and I say, we just got a little REPL. But what about loop? While true. How about while confirm? Would you like to know more? And we can keep doing this until the cows come home. Well, I won't do that. That'll throw an exception. How about 2 to the power of 10? What's that? Quick. Yes, 1024. What's the craziest possible thing we can think of evaluating in here? High? Could we think of anything a bit more crazy? While true, we could block the event loop forever. What if we evaluate this? Gonna blow up? It works. We're just one level deeper now. Inception stuff. And we can evaluate it again. All right, so is everyone thoroughly confused now? Let's just, so we're in our level, in our REPL one level down. If we press cancel, we'll get back up. Break. That was smart. I never thought of that. All right, so that's the end. Thanks, everybody.